Hi, everybody, and welcome to this latest edition of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast. I'm your beat reporter for Michigan State Spartans on SI, Aiden Champion. Coming to you, I'm coming to you pretty late here. The first round of the NFL draft just wrapped up. Earlier this evening, Michigan State well, I shouldn't say finally, because yesterday they added their or landed their first commitment from the transfer portal, but were able to add another one on Thursday, another edge rusher. This time, not nearly the same level of talent. This kid's going to be a walk on, nonetheless, brings depth to the edge rush room, and that is Jack Kusa. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's from Hope College, was a first team all conference guy last year. Um, really just, a depth piece, but very talented. And I think it's clear that they have been trying to address the rush end. This comes a day after Michigan State had landed Isaac Smith from Texas Tech. That was a big time move. Um, I'm I do find it a little concerning that Michigan State hasn't utilized the portal, the spring window more than it has. Portal closes today, Friday. Obviously, they'll be able to still um, land prospects. Uh, I don't necessarily anticipate there being too many more just because of how long this process has taken, and it doesn't seem that there's an urgency to address many needs. Um, I said before they didn't necessarily have to, have um, a big time, you know, haul in this window because, they did a lot of their work in the winter, but I do think you have to take advantage when the portal is open. And I don't feel like they've really done that. I do think it was big that they're able to land Isaac Smith. That's a guy who could potentially start. Um, and if he doesn't, he still will probably see significant playing time. You know, this was a guy who was a very impactful player for Texas Tech in his two active seasons with them, especially last year. And I could see that. I anticipate that being the case with Michigan State. But I do think you needed to do more here, and they might still, but the lack of aggression, I do think, is a little concerning. Especially when you finished 5-7 last year, and you can certainly get better in just about any room. And I know Jonathan Smith has emphasized depth and competition. Well, there's opportunity out there to create that. So when the portal's open, I just think you got to jump on it. There's always opportunities, um, always guys out there, and I know they've been having visits. Um, so I don't know whether it's an aggression thing or guys just frankly not really wanting to come here or what, but hasn't been the greatest spring as far as the transfer portal goes. Um, the this new guy from Hope, he's going to be a walk on, and I don't anticipate him being, very significant contributor, um, very talented kid, but I think he was mostly brought in to be a depth piece. I do think he could work his way up to something. You always can as a walk on, but I just think this isn't uh, going to be his year necessarily. Probably going to be a lot of watching from the sidelines. Um, but anyways, moving on to NFL draft. We went into this knowing that there's a likelihood that there weren't going to be any Spartans drafted, at least from last year's roster. Last year Nick Samak was the only Spartan to get drafted from the roster from 2 years ago. There seems to be um, guys seem guys who transferred out seem to find a lot of success and futures in the NFL, and that was the case tonight. Derek Carmen, who had transferred out last spring to Oregon, went 21st tonight to to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know there's always a little bitterness among the fan base when someone transfers out. There was some with Keon Coleman, um, and I get that, but I do think to an extent you should celebrate these things if you're a fan because they were Michigan State products at one point or another. So, you know, Derek spent 3 seasons at Michigan State. I do think he needs to be recognized, embraced by the fan base, celebrated for what he was able to accomplish by being a first round draft pick. As far as guys from last year's roster goes, I think the guy who has best chance again picked up, at least drafted, is Nate Carter. Had a really good pro day. Um, his his vertical, um, he had a he recorded a 40-inch vertical, which would have been second highest of any running back at the combine, which is huge. And then his 23 bench reps um, would have been tied for the most of any running back at the combine. So, um, that and just, pure talent. Um, I could definitely see Carter being a late round um, prospect, but, you know, I think the likelihood is that he will go undrafted, will be a undrafted free agent. That's his projection on NFL.com. Um, but if there's a guy who is likely to get drafted, it would be him. Um, it's quite frankly, I don't want to use the word pathetic because it's a very strong word, but the fact that you're likely going to go 2 years in a row with only one guy getting drafted, that says a lot about your program and where it's at. And that needs to change for Michigan State. They need to get back to producing NFL talent. And that doesn't mean guys who transferred and excelled elsewhere. Uh, it means guys who finished their careers at Michigan State and carry that into the NFL, which Michigan State has had success with in the past, but it has lacked recently. So that will come with winning. It will come with recruiting. It will come with recruiting through the transfer portal. All these things that Michigan State needs to ramp up um, with this regime under Jonathan Smith, which is still fresh. So, um, so we'll see what next year may hold. But and we'll let you know if Nate Carter does get drafted or anyone else, and we will let you know if they become undrafted free agents, get signed. We will keep you up to date with that as we do with everything else. You can read all of our content on Michigan State Spartans on SI. We are putting up tons of content daily that you can read there. Um, we appreciate you guys tuning in, reading, following along with us because we we work very hard to provide you with this content, and we love doing it, and we hope you love reading it and absorbing it. So thank you, everyone, and um, I hope you have a great weekend. Today in East Lansing was beautiful. Hope we get more of that. Tomorrow's supposed to be a little rainy. But it was a great, you know, feeling of warmth finally, like actual warmth. And I hope we get more of it soon. So, as always, I'm Aiden Champion, and thank you again, everyone. Again, have a great weekend, and we will catch you next time. Thanks.